Look at this beautiful rail fence with a twist is what I'm calling it. This is the prettiest quilt block I may have ever made. I absolutely love it. And it's not that difficult. I'm going to show you how. I'm going to set it aside here for a minute and show you. You know, a rail fence quilt block, you start by sewing pieces of fabric together. So I've done that in 4 different sets. I just took, you know, strips. I used jelly roll strips or 2.5-inch strips for this. I chose 4 within each color family, okay? And I made these longer strips. Now, what I did, since I used my 2.5-inch jelly roll strips, I used the entire strip. Now, if you're cutting 2.5-inch strips out of yardage of fabric, you want to go from end to end, okay, the width of the fabric. Cut your strip that long on all of these and then stitch them together. This is also a project where when we talk about pressing seams, I always like to press to one side. I'm not really a press them open guy. But on this project, I would advise you to press your seams open. So the backs look really nice too. Because we have so many seams with this, that's the only reason. So once you get all of your long strips, we of course want to cut them into smaller blocks. Now, how do you do that? Well, first you measure how deep this is. And this happens to be 8.5 inches deep. So I want to cut a length that is 8.5 inches deep. And that is right here. I'm going to set him aside. And by the way, because the length of these fabric strips went like 44 inches long, I have gotten about 5 of these squares out of this entire blue strip. So that's a good amount of stuff. So once you cut this little square, I'm going to do that out of each of the 4 colors. Now the next trick is we are going to slice it in half diagonally. All right, so then we have this set up. So I have done this with all these colors already, and I'm going to just quickly lay them out here for you so you can see what we have. I've got my 2 blues here. I've got my nice greens here. And then my reds went up in the corner. And then my yellows were up in the other corner. Now, before we piece this together, we really have to get the order lined up. Now, a rail fence means that these strips, well, these strips are going this way. We want the other strips to go this way, okay? So I want to take a look at all of this. Another way of looking at it is look at the dead center here and make sure you have diagonals going out, 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 and out. I mean, I do with my green, but I don't with these. So I'm going to rotate these. See, so now I have a diagonal coming out on the blue. I'm going to rotate the reds, and I'm going to rotate the yellows. Now you can see from the center, I've got 4 diagonals going out. That also means that my stripes now are going this way, this way, this way, this way. That's what you want. Now the only other special thing I've done with this is swapped a few pieces, like when we do a disappearing quilt block. I take opposites. So for instance, this yellow and this blue, I want to swap them. So when I do, I go here. And then this red and this green, I'm going to swap them as well. And then this is going to be the quilt block, all right? We just have to stitch all this together. So that's the next little trick. Taking one at a time, we want to, of course, sew the diagonals together. We're going to make 4 little blocks out of this, all right? But there's a trick to doing this, and you have to see to believe. I have 2 versions here. This version is where I just folded over one triangle over to another, matched up the corners, and stitched a 1/4 inch seam. But the problem with that is it's not going to work because look, when I open this up, my lines, see my stripes, see my striped fabric? These lines do not line up at all, even when I press this open. So that is a fail. I'm going to rip this seam out. I'm going to redo this later because that's not the way to do it. The way you want to do this is you want to take your triangular pieces, lay them across on top of each other, right sides together. But you need to skew this. You need to take this top one and slide it down a little bit. Now, my way of doing it is a little different. You probably have your own way. But if you have a little gauge, I set it to 3/8 of an inch. I want to see this back fabric. See the yellow shining through? I want to see 3/8 of an inch of that yellow fabric. If I can do that, if I can lay this triangle here and expose the 3/8 of an inch, I can sew my 1/4 inch seam. And then when I open this up, well, look, when you press this, these lines then match up. That's what you want, okay? Some people measure down from the end. You can do that as well. It's going to be more than 3/8. I just do the 3/8 gap here. If I were to flip this over, I've got another 3/8 of an inch of fabric showing on this side too. So that's just sort of my little trick for opening these up. Now, when you do open these up, of course, you're going to have like this. It's starting to look a little skewed. It's got some dog ears on the end. You want to trim this down. So I have actually trimmed this down to a 7-inch square. Now on my original, I think they were 7.5, but on this version I'm showing you, this trims down to a nice 7-inch square. And once you have 4 of those, you just lay them face to face and stitch your 1/4 inch seam, and then front down and stitch that. And folks, that's all there is to it. And because I say press the seams open every time you stitch, you've got a beautiful backing too. I mean, look at the back of this. This is absolutely beautiful. It looks flawless. So it's not often that the back looks as pretty as the front, but it certainly does on this. So rail fence with a twist, I really hope you give it a try, and happy sewing.